Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Let's start from the early one. So, where did you start? Tell me about, is there anything in your childhood that led you to an entrepreneurial path? Tell me how you started about growing up.
Didn't really have an entrepreneurial spirit as a kid, but I did have the opportunity to pick apart a lot of things. My father encouraged me on a couple of ways. One is I was allowed to take the tools, and I was allowed to go basically tear apart everything in the house. When I got to the television, I was like, okay, be careful, son. But the other thing was my father put a computer in my hands when I was of single-digit age. And my friends were nerds, and we all started writing code immediately. It wasn't Apple II Plus. It was owned by the local university. And that was kind of my, I was not quite a digital native, but that was really, really close. And that was the thing that actually became my education. It's like I got to take things apart, I started playing with computers, and then eventually I started putting things together, and I started putting them together in new ways. So one of the greatest things that I got to do over the years was integration. So I thought I was going to be a rock star when I grew up. I was playing in a band, I was being a lifeguard during the day and having a lot of fun. And then a friend of mine got a job at a wireless company. And he then got a better job. I was like, Marc, go talk to these people. You need something to do. I wasn't doing very well at the university at the time. So when I got there, it was in an old house in the historical district of town. It's called Capitol Radio Telephone. They've been in business for many, many, many years. My first mobile phone had a rotary dial on it and a handset, and it would blow the horn in the car when I got a phone call, so I could know from inside the restaurant or something else. Anyway, there were five people, various ages and descriptions, sitting around a table in the second floor of this old house, typing this 132 green bar printouts that had been printed out from the old computer system, typing it into the new computer system. And then a few days later, the hard drive crashed and they didn't have a backup, and those people had been working for half the summer or something. And I took that printout and I went to the guy who hired me. He was kind of a cowboy, he was a sales guy, and I said, you know what, computers can talk to each other. I could get this stuff out of there and put it into there. And he gave me one of those wonderful ultimatums, which was like, okay, if you can do this, I'll give you a few days. Otherwise, I'm going to fire you and hire somebody who wants to type. So I found an API, I found a serial connection, I figured out how to print to a file on the crappy old system that they had. It was QNX, if I remember correctly. And then a few days later, I was importing customer records, and he fired 4 people and hired me as an operations manager for the place. So I took every opportunity I had in that place. I learned to work on the mobiles, I learned to fix the pagers, I learned to install a mobile into a car. Well, that was pretty easy, I'd already figured that out at 18 years of age. But I also got to touch and learn and upgrade every system in the shop. And whenever anything would go wrong, any time of day, I was like, call me, I will come. So that then gave me the next level of education, which was, okay, now I can go to any one of the vendors for those companies, or actually any one of the affiliates or the subcontractors that the company would also hire. And I could go to them and say, hey, I know your system better than you do because I'm a customer, I know it from the inside out. Hire me. So I went for the software company in California that served wireless companies. And I went in as customer service, and as soon as they figured out that I could write code, they let me start fixing customer problems like in real time. So they would make big software releases and all of this kind of stuff, and it would go to a wireless customer, and a lot of things were custom. And then as soon as they had a problem, that wireless customer was basically losing money, because either they couldn't do customer service, which would piss off a customer, they would lose money, or they had real-time software, which was eventually I got a team and we wrote a real-time rating engine, which was the first time in the world that you could go to a wireless company's webpage and look to see what your phone bill was going to be before you got the next one. Was software that we had written, and we were competing with IBM and mainframes, and we did it on a Linux PC. So this was like 1996. So really, the things that I learned about this process was I took every opportunity I could get, every way I could. I took everything that someone would put on my desk. A lot of times I got overwhelmed, sometimes I didn't finish things or whatever, but I got to learn all of those. And then when it came time to start looking for the next job, I had a bunch of skills that I had basically learned myself by doing.
All right. So you've been a tech enthusiast since an early age. What were you studying?
I have one semester of university, and that was as a music major.
Okay. And because you thought you were going to be a rock
because
star.
I thought I was going to be a rock star when I grew up. So.
And always since a kid you thought you'd be a rock star?
I'm a better talker than I am a guitar player.
Okay.
It doesn't maybe say that much, but.
And what was the road that led you to Finland? You've been here for how long now?
It will be 10 years, January 3rd of 2016, so I'm already saying 10 years most of the time. It feels like it. I went to work for Nokia in San Diego, California, and it was a product creation center. So everything that it took, hardware, software, testing, sales and marketing, product concepts, research, all kinds of things were under a couple of really big roofs, and really, really brilliant people. And I went in doing something called software configuration management, which is like if you think about you have a bag of Lego bricks and you can pull out from that and you can make a car or you can make an airplane or something else. Software configuration management was about taking all the little pieces and parts that it takes to make a phone and making one that has Chinese languages on it, or making one that is for Vodafone or for DNA or Sonora or something. So it was about being able to take lots of variable things and make sure you understand what is in there and you understand where it had come from. If you get sued later down the road because of something, you have proof that you had done everything correctly. So it was like about every change and every way to change software and then hardware. And so I got to participate in a bunch of phone programs. I've told this story a few times lately, that the first time that somebody walked down the street and I met them and they had a handset in their hand that I had worked on. It was this green, I don't remember the number, this green thing. And I saw it immediately. I knew that was a phone I'd worked on. I stopped and I talked to them. I said, hey, that's so cool. Those were good days. But Nokia wasn't doing very well with the US market. They were canceling programs. They were not doing the things that I thought would be useful there. Like there was never a Symbian device for the North American market. I was a part of trying to do that. So I did a little bit of system integration work and then started looking for jobs in Finland. I had been here before. I liked the culture, I liked the directness, I liked the no bullshit attitude, I like the sisu. This is a place that you have to want to come here for a reason. And you know, I had a lot of reasons. And so from the first time that I came here, I felt like there was a lot that Finland had to offer. I was right. I've been here for a long time, and Finland's been very good to me. So then I started looking for jobs, and I found a configuration management job for a brand new platform within Nokia in Finland. It's like, you know, hallelujah. So I applied and waited, and I called and got no answer, and waited, and I sent emails, and nothing happened. And then eventually I got a phone call from a director who said, you know, I would like to interview you for this. And I was on fire. I was in my house, I had stairs, and I was running up and down the stairs, and I was just shouting at the guy. It's like, another problem that you're going to face with your new platform is you're going to need to figure out how to do customization. You're going to need to understand you have this operator, and you have that region, and you have these requirements and that requirements, and then da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was just running up and down the stairs, shouting at the guy. I was so excited that I finally had this connection. And then afterwards, I realized I have no idea if that went well or not. But I got a second interview, and then I got an interview in Finland. And the night before the interview, I went down to the hotel bar. It was this Radisson SAS Seaside in Ruoholahti. And I took a brand new notebook. And I went to the back of the notebook and I started drawing pictures. And I drew a process for software review so that you could have inspection of things before they go to production. And I wrote a little something about that. And I drew a process for change management. And I drew a process for customization and all these kinds of things. And then I very carefully went to the front of the notebook and wrote them perfectly. So then I walked into my interview, and the interviewing manager walked in with a huge stack of paper, and blank paper and a pen. And then he started drawing pictures, and I was like, well, I didn't know how much time we have, so I prepared in advance. And then I opened the notebook, and I started showing him the stuff I had prepared. And then it didn't take very long. He was like, okay, I have an impression. And then the interview was over. And I was like, okay, well, I made an impression. I didn't know if it was a good impression or not. So then I went back to California. I didn't know really what was going on at Nokia. I thought I was going to be out of a job soon, actually. And then I got the phone call to come. So I spent from 2006 until, I don't even know what it is now, February 11th of 2011 anyway, believing that I was the future of of Nokia, or not I, but the things that we were working on, the idea that we had to make an open source platform for mobiles, to take all, whatever legacy systems had been created and create something new. And we were kind of like the Wild Wild West. We were cowboys in a certain way, that we didn't follow all of the existing Nokia processes. We had the opportunity to do things our own way. And we released a device called the Nokia N900, which is the, anybody ever have one of those or use one of those? Okay, all right, lots of love in the room. To me, the single greatest milestone device, forget your iPhones, this was before that. It was the first device that I had in my hand. It had a little QWERTY keyboard, and it was kind of squat, square, a little thick, but it was the first device. I could go to meetings, I could be at work all day, and I didn't need to carry a laptop anymore. It was not a phone, it was a computer that happened to make phone calls as well. And we made that, and it was an amazing experience. Just before we made it, I was actually thinking to go back to California and take a California salary and buy a yellow Porsche 911 turbo convertible and do a few other things. And one of the Nokia executives came into our all hands meeting, and he looked me dead in the eye and said, "You are the future of the world's greatest company.
You will stay here."
And I said, "Yes, I will stay here." So anyway, and then we started working on what was to be the next device. And then it started becoming a bit more like the other platforms had been. People who had good intentions came from other parts of the company trying to solve the problems that they had previously instead of looking at the problems that we had. So we ended up having multiple sets of things going on. And then February 11th, 2011, I was standing in the Nokia Research Center in Ruoholahti in the lobby. There was several thousand people, that standing room only, to listen to the speech by Stephen Elop, that the burning platform and all of this kind of stuff, and we were effectively canceled. So from that point, I didn't know what to do. I really thought, okay, maybe I can just take whatever little package that I'll get and go buy a shack in the middle of Texas somewhere and do something different for the rest of my life. But we started looking around, and it's like, okay, we have an operating system that's open source. It's on the internet. Anybody could take it. We could take it and do something with it. We know how to make products. We've been doing it our whole lives. We've had some design people and some product people that knew how to plan this kind of stuff. And then we had this idea that, well, let's go make our own products and let's go for it. So
then you started with
then
Yola.
we started with Yola, yeah.
So how did that start out? Like, who made the decision, and was there anybody who believed in the project?
There was basically two camps. There was, in Helsinki, we had a group of people that were integration and product releasing. So it's like you take all the raw materials of hardware and especially software, and then there is one organization whose job is to help turn that into a product. So that was our area of expertise, getting all this stuff from all the different kinds of developers and all the different organizations, all the different modules, and making sure that the software works together and then turns into something that you know what is there and that you then can improve. So, making releases and things. And then there was another group that was the designers and product managers and some community people and things like that. And when those two came together, there was this, all of a sudden, really, we could do this, guys. We could do it. And I've told this story a couple times, so I'll tell it again. I was on holiday. I was on the beach in Greece, and I had to take this phone call because that was when those people were coming together. And I realized, now there's a lot of people involved. I have to commit or I'm going to be out of this and I'm going to be really pissed. So I jumped in and I took the phone call. Honey, why are you sitting on the beach on your holiday talking about work? It's like, this is important.
It's not work.
So it's a dream. So.
And did you receive some help from Nokia? Because when the first bunch of layoffs came up, Nokia started with some programs to help. And how did you manage to convince them to let you use the Sailfish and the technology that you've developed for Nokia?
There's a few different things there. The greatest thing is that they put this program into place to help people go and take the stuff that was in their heads and do something new with it. So I'm not sure where the economy is going. I'm not an economist or something else, but I have thought for quite a while that it's not a bad thing that these kind of changes happen, because it releases people from sitting at the same desk doing the same work for the rest of their life, serving one company that does great things but still and turn that into an entrepreneurial spirit and go and try to solve world problems or do something different. So I saw that as a pretty good thing a lot of the time. The most important thing then, the most important conclusion from that is they did not block us from taking the knowledge in our heads and even this open source software that was sitting there on the internet and doing something with that. You know, they could have said, you know, no, you are not going to go compete, or you're not going to go. A lot of people went to work for Intel or Huawei or these other companies that came in to grab Finnish expertise and Finnish engineering and Finnish resources. And by Finnish, I mean people that are here, because there's two things. You know, not only is there, you know, a great amount of talent, big Finnish talent, but it's also, how many immigrants in the house here tonight? Okay, almost all of us. Let's turn this the other direction. Who are the Finns? Okay, all right, there's 5 of you for the people behind the cameras. So, but it also draws a lot of very talented, beautiful, and amazing people to the country to participate in this kind of stuff. So then a lot of other companies have come in here and taken advantage of that also. How
did you actually get started? I mean, was it easy to get financing? Was the ecosystem supporting this? How did you get financing, and from who?
It's interesting. One of the lessons here, and I was telling a few people in the audience today, is you have to be absolutely truthful always. You get caught lying, you don't deserve to be in business, and other people will prove that to you. But what you do is you're always finding, you know, the one thing that you got from one conversation that you can use in the next. So when you talk to a potential partner, then you say, okay, if we have these kinds of things in place, can we do this kind of business? And then you talk to another partner and you say, okay, we're talking to these guys about doing this kinds of business. If these kinds of things are in place, can we put these kinds of things in place? So it's always like kind of going back and forth. And it's like every time you have a conversation with someone, you have more the next time. And it's about bringing lots of different kinds of companies, people, investors, ideas, partners together, and then leveraging those back and forth. So when you become a connector, then that gives you a lot of opportunity to then take one thing or one group or one partnership and leverage that for more. So we did a lot of this. For example, early in our history, if you look on the internet, we had a deal with a distributor in China. That deal with the distributor in China helped us to get various things. So it's like, you know, it depends on what kind of business or service or something that you're looking at, but it's always about, you know, leveraging one partner, leveraging one investor against the other. You know, really clearly, if you talk to an investor and they are at all interested, then you go to the other investor and say, these guys are interested. Right? It's really simple. So then they start to say, uh-oh, those guys are interested, maybe we should be interested too. And then this is the kind of thing that happens a lot once the first investor comes in. A lot of times it's a lot easier after that to get the next ones, but it's that first one that can be really difficult.
Did you ever feel the pressure, like that you really had to find more investment, or were you lucky in this? We'll take that.
It never ends, and there's a couple of different ways to look at a business like this. One is that you do a growth business that is based upon investment. And there are companies that do that. We don't care about money, we care about users. We want to build up a big user base because then that gives us a value. Anybody know the value that was put on a single user for WhatsApp?
1 billion users they have to bring?
Well, it was $50 a user.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's $50 a user, right? That's a high one. So you do an investment-based growth kind of thing. Then there's the old-fashioned way that you build a sustainable business. That's a different kind of thing. In reality, you're somewhere in between. So you try to build a plan that shows that you have assets. What are your assets? They are you and your team. They are your idea, your wonderful world-changing idea, which is why you're doing this. What other kinds of things can you get? There's this soft kind of asset, which is, all right, I talked to these guys. Are you interested now? But then you can get ones that are sometimes harder, like you can sign memorandum of understanding, a document that says, we have talked officially to this person, and they do acknowledge that conversation has taken place, right? And now you have a document that says that. And a lot of times you do these as a preliminary thing before a contract. because it says at least we're talking about the same stuff. We're not actually doing anything with it, but we're talking about the same stuff. So now, what other assets do you have? Can you build a prototype? Is your prototype just on paper? Is it something you can demonstrate to people? Do you have a website idea? Well, can you at least show a picture of it on an iPad to the person before you get there? That's an asset. Of course, something that you can actually demo that actually works, a 3D printed product or something. And then partnerships, what other kinds of people want to be involved. So all of these are the kind of assets that you can show, and then you build a timeline and you say, okay, this is what we have now, this is what we expect to have with this investment level and this kind of commitment from these kind of partners, and then this is what we're going to get from that, which is this great result where we have users and revenue, cash flow, and all of these kinds of things. And then what's going to happen from that is we're going to be a self-sustainable growth business with this much users and this much money at this period of time. So you build this really simple kind of timeline that says, this is the stuff that we need, and this is what we're going to give for that, and this is all the stuff that we've already got. And then every time you talk to somebody, you give them more, right? So now I go to talk to an investor and I show them that. The next time I show them that I have done something. And this history and provenance is a wonderful English word for that. The provenance of something is something a lot of people forget. You might show the future, but how did you get here? If you've been working on your startup for 6 months, if you can show something about what has happened really in that 6 months, then you can show somebody, how do you think? How do you solve problems? How do you take user feedback or investor feedback or partner feedback and turn that into a more viable business plan, a more viable model? So showing something for the history and then showing what are the steps in order to take that investment and that you are asking for and turn it into real results that make them then want to invest.
So you started out in an interesting time from a media perspective, because the media has changed quite a bit in Finland on the perception about entrepreneurship. You know, from not very supportive to super excited about it. What was the perception when you started? Did people think you were crazy?
Yes, some of them still do, but I never really bought that. I thought we were ambitious. But the media has turned. There was this thing that I heard about in the early days, that there might be a jealousy, or who do you think you are? You want to go do this? Go integrate yourself into the machine. Go work for S Group or work for these guys or those guys. And I think it's really exciting to be here, but I hope that people realize that your startup or your idea, if you just want to go find a niche in somebody else's market and do something a little different because they haven't yet, if you want to just become the new, Airbnb of this or the Tinder of that or the this of that or the this of that, is there a value really to people? We have lots of problems in the world today, and what I get really excited about is startups that want to actually look at solving world problems. I'll give you an interesting idea that I was talking about over coffee the last few days. Everybody knows about the refugee situation. Most of the people in the audience are immigrants. Think about how you felt when you got here. Think about the processes that it took for you to get comfortable. Think about the things that you had to do. Think about, how did you integrate? How did you find people? How did you find services? How did you find your way around? How the hell do you pronounce things in Finnish? There's a lot of different things. And then, is there a problem that could be solved that could actually help all of these people who are running away from war in their homes, who have now ended up here and are going to face not only the problems that you face, but it's actually even a little steeper. So that's one thing that not only does it help the world, but it's also really, really hot right now. And if you were to do something about that, you would probably get a lot of support. So, those kind of things are really, really interesting. I'm still interested in paying my rent. I'm still interested in, having people to work with on exciting projects, and, building things is great and all this kind of stuff. But, some real social responsibility is at your fingertips and available to you right now. And you could use that in order to do something that actually corporations aren't doing, governments aren't doing. So who else is going to do it other than smart, young, connected people?
So anybody looking for an idea, keep this one in mind.
Grab that one and run with it, please.
You might have an advisor here right away. You talked about team earlier. How did the what was the process in forming a team? What did you learn about team formation?
All right. So the first, the things I usually talk about is vision, talent, and attitude. When you talk to someone, you connect with them in 30 seconds or not. Do they, like I was describing it to Joshua today, I said, when you look up at the clouds, right, and you see something up there, maybe you see a cow, all right, and then you say, hey, to someone, do you see the cow up there? And they say, well, you know, I see a fish over there. It's like, oh yeah, there's a fish over there and a cow over there, right? That's sharing a vision. If you can connect someone with your vision in a very short period of time, and they can add something, they see something that you didn't see, okay, that's a good step. The next thing is attitude. Maybe it's the first thing, but let's call it the next thing. Up here or down here? Do you want to work with somebody who is really excited? I want to do this just because I believe in your idea. I want to do this because I want to help change the world. I want to help solve this kind of world problem. I want to do something great with my life. I don't care. It's not about getting rich. It's about every day getting up and doing something great together. Guys, we can do this, right? That's attitude. We do need people that work like this sometimes and for certain things. But a lot of times in the early days, especially of Yola, that wasn't the guy that would get hired. And then talent is an interesting thing. Like if you look at there's actually a nasty word for this, ageism something. Like you look at Silicon Valley, what's happening is that they want to hire young people whose best work is ahead of them, not whose best work is on their CV behind them. So there's an amount of proving yourself, but there's also an amount of those previous things, which is like, okay, look, I want to do this because of what it is. Maybe I don't have all the answers now, but I can get them, and I am really committed to whatever this thing is that the person is applying for, or that you are applying for, or that you are trying to sell. So those three things. In the startup world, we also talked about talent being this T-shaped thing, that because we were R&D, we were looking for people that had very, very deep skills in something like kernel programming, or something like the graphics pipeline, or something like RF, or cellular data, or something. We were looking for people that we had to have deep expertise in something, but also they had a broad amount of things they were willing to do. The kernel programmer might be working on an infrastructure problem, or might be trying to get the server back online, or something like that. The next important, another thing that I remembered today, I was told not to curse too much on the camera, but okay. Yes or no, right? So when you're hiring people, if it's we'll make a software, if it's hell yes, right? If it's hell yes, this is the person that I want for this job, or I'm sorry, no. No offense, you're not the right person for the job today, or thank you for your submission, it was great, maybe we could talk again in the future, but you're just not there today. So if it's absolutely yes, or I'm sorry, no, that's a really important thing, that you don't want to get into the situation where down the road you have gone with someone that you're not so sure about, and then they prove why you had that instinct to start with. But the absolute next thing is that we were building a company, a growth company. It grew quite quickly. We were having job interviews over some courses of days where we were looking at a new face every 15 minutes, and they were just moving like that. So vision, talent, attitude was a big thing, but also I was not the decider at that point. The last round of people that were hired or actually some core people in the company, engineers, hiring engineers, doing some cross-platform stuff, like would you have salespeople and engineers in the same room if one of those groups was people who were being hired? Would you have someone from finance interview somebody from care, these kind of things? Because diversity at any level, skills diversity, ethnic diversity, cultural diversity, whatever, that extra perspective that you can get from somebody might be the most important deciding factor. So we really tried to make it so that the next round of employees would hire the next round, and we found that was really critical, because I'm sorry, you hired them, So you made this decision, so now, you know, it's not exactly that you have to live with it, but you kind of get what I mean. So.
Why? Why did you start? What got you out of bed? I mean, this was an incredibly ambitious project. So why did you start it? What change did you think it would bring you?
80% of the world's smartphone market is controlled by one company, our dear sponsors. And there's a problem with that, which is that everything is going mobile. Mobile operating system is really interesting. Our desktop's really selling anymore. You know, notebooks, laptops still do, but things are getting smaller. So what kind of operating system do you think is going to be in those Internet of Things devices? It's going to be a small, portable, mobile operating system. So everything is going electronic. You know, this digitalization is another thing that you talk about a lot in startup circles. Finding that niche that is not really digital yet or is not done very well, and then all that stuff is actually going mobile, and then the mobile thing is getting broken into Internet of Things and, you know, lots of other things. And one company has all the cards, and that's a problem. That company holding all the cards has an advertising strategy, which means that all of the world's operators, all of the world's content providers, you know, the Spotifys and the Netflixes and all these guys, all of the e-commerce platforms, everything from eBay and Amazon to Snapdeal and Flipkart and, you know, everybody else, and the original equipment manufacturers, Sony, HTC, you know, everybody, all of these kind of guys are dependent on one company's strategy, which happens to be advertising. It happens to be taking your data from a platform that they created in order to collect your data, taking that stuff and then using it to make a profit. The analogy I give a lot of times is that you drop a few euros on the ground and someone else runs over and picks it up, you're going to be pretty unhappy with that person. So that's, you are giving up value in your data for services. And okay, who's not on Facebook in the crowd? Okay, congratulations, we have one. There's always one guy somewhere. You know, we give up a lot just to use that service, just so my mother can see that I'm here talking to you today. You know, she's so proud. You know, we give up something for those services. If you understand, okay, that's one thing. If you opt out, that's another thing. But like an example I gave at the hardware thing this week was that, so like these Fitbits and these wearables, right? So do you know where that's going then? So you're going to get a discount from your insurance company if you wear that thing. And then I don't want to wear that thing, so I'm not going to get it. So now I have to pay more because I don't want them to know what I'm doing with that hand at all times. And you know, that's the thing. It's like everything in our world, you know, you can't buy a car today that doesn't have telemetry in it, or that doesn't, you know, they're going that way. So as everything becomes more connected, it becomes more and more difficult, you know, to opt out and to just give up on this stuff. So, and no one's doing anything to stop it. So we said from the beginning that we're not going to sell user data and we're going to have a different model. And that's what we set out to do. That's what one of the things that got us out of bed every day. The other thing that got us out of bed was, like I was asked about one of the fears of being an entrepreneur, and the first thing that I came up with was letting people down that depend on me. It's like the people that come into work every day. I and my group of founders and things were responsible for their salaries and, you know, their kids getting fed and all of this kind of stuff. And, you know, wow, that's a huge thing. And then there's a community of people who are holding us to the highest possible standard and don't want to let those people down. You know, that's the kind of stuff that, you know, and then you say something and people like me don't necessarily always think it through, you know, then you have to back that up, right? And that can be really something too. So, you know, it's but the biggest thing was the people I worked with were also the biggest reason I got out of bed every day, because guys, hey, let's do this. So, I'll answer another question that other people asked because I announced. So I have a sailfish tattoo on the back of my head, which is which is the logo for the operating system that we created at Yola, and it was a milestone. We made the phone, And the day that we made the phone, I ordered the tattoo. Or the day that we actually launched it and we knew that it was going to be there. We had the meeting in the morning and said, yes, we're going to do this. There actually was such a thing. Then I ordered it, and it was basically a milestone that, okay, we had achieved that at that point, and nobody can ever take that away from us. We did what we said we were going to do. So.
And then other people that didn't want the tattoo, they got the I made this cover.
That was a surprise, actually. I have the thing here. So when we had the launch event, I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what it was, and they lined up the founders and a few of the other ones, and there was a big box of these, and then everybody in the company came through. And the story there was, I have been on stages since I was a teenager, mostly as a musician, but then I started teaching various things, trainings, and I was always comfortable in front of people. And when I got up to launch the phone, I just broke down on the stage. I was crying. I even made notes so I wouldn't screw it up, and I screwed up the notes. And then afterwards, I was just so nervous because now we have released our baby into the world, and there was a group of community members, and they kind of came around and they were like, hey, good this and good that and good this. So then I went up to the party and did I made this, and everybody in the company came through, and I gave them one of these, and we all hugged them. And then I went back downstairs, and they were like, hey, you look so much different. What happened? I said, never underestimate the power of 100 hugs. So, but anyhow, yeah.
So, that's one chapter. Your involvement in the startup community. We've seen you at more and more events as a coach. What are you doing in the startup community in Helsinki?
I'm trying to help people not make the same mistakes that I've made, not make the same, or understand what they can do, criticize what they're doing, however possible, to help them understand what are they talking about, what are they actually trying to do, make some connections. I said some years ago, it's like I got to the point in my life where I don't need very much, and I think I have a lot to give, so this is one way that I get to do that. If anybody here gets an idea, like they go out and start solving world problems, cool, then I've done something good here today. I've started working as an advisor and a coach, and I'm joining a couple of startups here and there, I think, for a couple of reasons. One is some of them are just really fun ideas, really cool people, and then also, like I said, to pay the rent and do those kind of things. But this is great stuff, and you need to take risks in life. You need to try different things, and the more I work with people, the happier that I am. So.
And you've been here for so long, so how much has the startup scene changed, and how has it changed in a good way, and what's changed in a bad way, and what is still really badly needed?
What's really badly needed is this government to do something about making positive change that enables entrepreneurs to get out and create new technologies and create new jobs. Like cutting the funding for Techus this year, that is one of the most difficult things to imagine, how you grow an economy by cutting money that goes directly to hiring people in this country. I mean, that's astonishing to me. That's one of the most difficult things, but the government has a huge opportunity to change and to do some good things. The good thing is it's growing. There are more people interested. There is more jobs, more ability to do this, probably even more investment money and other things than there was before, even with the cuts and things like that. The thing that's kind of difficult was the thing I touched on before, which is that if your idea is to go do something that somebody else is already doing and you want to do it just a little bit different, if you want to just exploit a niche in a market that already exists, some of these things, they get a little old to listen to. And I don't want to dampen anybody's ideas, but you think about things. Is what you're doing actually good for people? Are you doing it because you want to give something to people rather than just take money from them? Or there was a guy at a startup event this week, and there was a photo there, and he wrote "future millionaire" under it. And I was going to go talk to him. I didn't bother. But it's like, if you think you're in it for the money, go buy a lottery ticket. You're going to have a lot better experience with it. But you know, it's really exciting that there's so much emphasis, there's so much opportunity, there's so much positive, wonderful things you can do. You can reach the world stage, you know, and it's achievable. It's right there in front of you, and any one of you can go have the next great thing, and you can help more people in the world than, you know, most of the governments of the world are doing. So,
well, the former U.S. Ambassador Bruce Orrick, he said on many occasions that, you know, Finland has a lot of technical talent, but it's not good at marketing itself. You've worked with a lot of technical talent. What's your take on this?
What he said is almost true. The average Finnish engineer is not a marketing guy. That sounds funny, but what we need to understand then is if you're not a marketing person and you have a good idea, go find one. If you have some skill needed that you do not have, find someone else that has it, that can see what you're trying to do, that understands your vision, that then has the talent that you don't have, and preferably they want to do it, they have the right attitude towards it. So, this is my good idea, and you know, okay, those guys need help, and there are some of them. So, anybody have a marketing background here, or wants to be? A couple of good guys. Finance, legal. Okay, so that's 3 areas that every startup needs help. You need to have some kind of access to legal and understand, is what you're doing legal enough to do anywhere. So, you know, I agree with Bruce that there's a lot of need there, but that's one of the kind of things that, you know, I hope that groups and organizations like this can actually start to help. It's like, find people that have those talents you don't have. Embrace them.
All right. Biggest fuck-ups in... Oh, no, it was... Biggest fuck-ups in your career. And how did you overcome them?
It's like a job interview question for an 18-year-old.
Tell me, where would you see yourself in 5 years?
That was funny. Somebody asked me at the beginning of Yola, where are you going to be in 3 years? I said, I'm going to be lying on the beach or lying in the grave. One of the biggest things that I learned during especially the last 3.5 years was that not everybody sees things the way that you do, and you need to present things the way that they see them. Which is, it takes tactics. It's like, okay, I'm a great person, I'm a people person, I can communicate, blah, 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 blah. Then, good. Maybe you're better than the average person if you have those things. But then every person can go and learn communication skills. And those are, how do you present something? How do you pitch? How do you present yourself? How many times have you apologized in this conversation? How many times have you looked at the floor instead of looking at the person you're speaking with? When someone disagrees with you, what do you do? When you disagree with someone else, what do you do? That's a good one, right? So you can do it a certain bold way, depending on the person. You can say, I disagree. I believe that it's like this. And then either you have won over their heart because they're like, okay, this is a bold person who can do that, or they show you the door. So learning to not just be myself, learning to read people, understand and steer them is one really interesting thing. Another way to do that is by asking questions. So when you are pitching and you have done your pitch, right? So then you did the best pitch that you could. You have done your pitch. So now you have this person sitting in front of you. They are a valuable resource. What can you get from them? And I don't mean money or investment or partnership or paper or something. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Can I ask your opinion on this? Can I ask you about that? Have you seen this? Have you seen that? Those kinds of things. It's like now you start asking questions and you get the most information that you can. If you just start talking, then you're missing the point of getting whatever they have to offer. And you probably need that. That's why you went there. there was like a bunch of books over the years, like Dealing with Difficult People was one. The No Asshole Rule was another one. But a lot of them come down to the fact that it's your job to get the best from every person in every situation. If you can do that, great. If you can't, learn how. Especially for these kind of things where you disagree or you have a resource in front of you and you want to get everything that you can from it.
All right. I have one final question, and then we're going to have the audience ask you some questions.
Cool.
So you said that people should not start a company if they're in it just for the money. Is there other reasons that you think that have been common things that you've seen that people should not start a company if they do certain things, if they're at it just for other reasons?
Well, obvious things. If you're adverse to risk, if you don't have the ability to make your idea very clear, promote your idea. If you don't understand that being successful sometimes means letting go. Some guys like, a lot of times you'll have a technical founder of a startup, for example, and the product now is their baby. And they don't really realize that, okay, for you to be the most successful, you might have to let go of being the CEO or the CTO or the this or the that of the company, because if you really want that idea to grow, and even if you just want to make the money, hiring people at a certain point and letting go of the thing is one of the most difficult. So you have a startup and you have this hot group of little people, this hot little group of people, and you're working really hard and everything starts running and everything starts great, and then you start hiring somebody who is better than somebody at a specific job or better than someone else at a specific job. That's difficult. So understanding you might have to let go in order to be successful. You might have to give it away or give it up. If you can't deal with failure, learn. You walk through Company Center and you see the shopping center here, and you see somebody who is there trying to sell you something, and they're like, "Hey, miss, hey, miss, hey, miss, hey, miss, hey, mister, hey, mister," and then the next day you walk by and you never see that person again, and the next day you walk by you never see that person again. It's like those people that stick there a little longer are learning how to deal with rejection. They're learning how to deal with failure. They might have to do that 1,000 times, and then they make a sale. And then now all of a sudden, when they go to the next job, it might be a little easier to sell. They have already learned those kinds of things. So serial entrepreneur is that word for a reason. It means that you've had failures and you keep going, you keep picking up and trying new things. But still, it's something that can be learned.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's give him a massive applause. All right, we're going to have now about 15 minutes of questions, so fire them away. Come on, somebody.
Yeah, what can we learn from Yola? So far, what I read from media is that there is a great marketing group and team, but what else?
What can be learned from Yola? Put people first, put community first. One of the recent things I learned from Yola, which I kind of knew all along, but it just kind of clicked, it's like building a movement or building a community is difficult. Joining a community or helping to lead a community that exists or even steer or build something for and with that community is a completely different ballgame. So Yola started on a community of people who had previously believed in Nokia's open source software strategy to build an open source operating system for mobile devices. That community existed. It included not only developers and hardcore hackers and open source people, but it also involved people that were Nokia fans and that were fans of doing things differently and who would just kind of pick up because, hey, this is something different. Maybe that's the next trend. So I think one of the greatest things is it's putting people first and putting community first.
Yes.
About Yola, so did you get funding from TechS and when you were building Yola, and how much was that percentage? And how much TechS support actually for this startup, as a startup?
I don't think I can comment on that directly, but I can tell you I know a few things about Techus. I know that they have programs where they can match funding. So if you get investment from some places, then you can get investment from Techus. And this thing that I was talking about leveraging two things at the same time, is that when you go to the investor, if you already have applied or talked to or something worked with Techus, you can say, okay, if you're giving me 50,000, then Techus is giving me another 50,000 or 20,000 or whatever, and now their investment is already getting bigger by a non-equity investor. So that is a very valuable thing, especially when you're looking at international investments as well.
And one more thing. Do you have any tips how to present things to Techus, because it might affect actually how you are presenting stuff to Techus people to convince them and to get research from them. So do you have any tips?
Have a one of the things that I touched on before, have a clear timeline that shows what you're doing with the money, what the milestones are that you, and the things that you're expecting to achieve with that. And then having international channels in order to sell that stuff. If it's a product or if it's a service, having the ability to have a global platform for that service, such that you are actually bringing money back into Finland with the investment in your local company.
Me too.
Hey Mark.
Hey.
Dimitri from Marc Start. Quick question. I love what you said about hell yes or no when hiring.
Yeah.
But I love hiring, so my question is like, what is your ideal hiring process? Like the whole way. Like, what are the steps that you took at Yola, or you would take yourself if you were to design a new hiring process? Because I mean, even hell yes or no can be, if you depend on one interviewer, that can be biased. If a really hot girl walks into your room or something, I don't know.
I don't care if she's ripping wires out of the wall in the server room. Let's hire that girl. No, it's not like that.
But yeah, like the hiring process was more interesting than that.
Diversity in the hiring process is one really, really important thing. If you have a small company, everybody's probably should be interviewing everyone. A lot of it has to do with the stories. So everybody comes in and they say, I'm a people person, I like to do this, I like to do that, I like to do this. Okay, tell me the stories of things that you have done. Try to get some kind of history about what the person actually has done, and you stop them whenever they start going off on other things, but get them to tell you stories about their thinking process, or draw the things out so that the whole interview is about what you've actually done, how do you think, what would you do here. And another really, really interesting thing about especially startup kind of hiring is getting people to work for free for a while, or giving them homework, or saying, okay, write an article for our magazine and bring photos and interview somebody interesting and come back and talk to me. And you can do this with either the people that are coming in, or you can even put that as part of the application process. And then the best one gets the job. The other thing is use the trial period vigorously. If there's any doubts, use the trial period and make sure that you keep the, if someone isn't fitting in, give them every opportunity to fit in, but make sure that people that don't fit in don't last past the trial period.
Any more questions? Yes.
I have two questions actually. It's still about hell yes, no, for instance.
And tell yes or
Yeah, let's say I have a guy, the guy is really good, he has what I need, but he has certain conditions like he needs certain form of motivation, and he seems to be the very guy that could deliver the things that I need based on circumstance. How do I play hell yes? No.
oh yes or that's just no. The no is indifferent. It's a difficult thing. It's like, can the guy do something for you already? Can he bring something? If it's like sales and marketing, for example, can he show you a network where he's actually done sales, and those sales would actually be potential customers for you? Or making sure that because if you're running the business, do you want to go motivate one of your employees or keep your employee motivated, or do you want them to already know what to do, already want to do it just because of what it is, and keep it running for themselves? The thing that we did was no direct reporting managers. So we did not hire people that we thought we would have to tell what to do. If they already know what to do and they already start to bring in the stuff, great, they get to stay. If they don't, then they're not in the right place, because we can't afford to tell them what to do. We can't afford to take the time away from what I should be doing in order to tell you what you should be doing. So I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah, that is. And my second question is about Yola. I was reading an article 2 weeks ago, and I read that Yola is moving from hardware to software. I don't know how true that is. Is that a pivotal decision, or is it part of a plan?
since the beginning, Yola was basically a operating system provider that created devices in order to showcase the abilities of the devices. And the tablet that's coming is fantastic, and it really shows that the operating system is portable, that the UI evolves. It's brand new UI compared to what used to be there. And the idea has always been that Yola creates this operating system, and that they are going to then use that with partners in order to create new opportunities for others. So. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Working with you talked about the tablet project, working with the Indiegogo community and proposing a project like of this dimension on Indiegogo, and what kind of challenges, what are the biggest challenges that you face?
The most important thing for a crowdfunding campaign is having the marketing in place prior to starting the campaign. So if this is like this community thing I was talking about, if you know who they are and you can already activate them, already get them involved, then you have a good possibility. If you think about the crowdfunding campaign as advertising, you're probably not going to have a very good one. It could go viral, but that's a 1 in a million chance. Doing all of the due diligence to get the customers there for day 0 of the crowdfunding campaign. So when you hit day 1, you already have an impact, because you only have, on the average, it's 35 days. So the marketing cannot be understated, and depending on the kind of company and the kind of startup, maybe you can find existing communities, give them solutions, get them involved. You can build a tree of who are all the different kinds of people that might be interested in my product or service here. And then you go and you find those, and you look, are there leaders in those communities? Are there people that get followed? Will those people raise some interest there? And you start trying to get those things in place. And you have this concept of, when I talk about milestones in my history, milestones are decision points where you make investment or not. So if you get to the point where you're ready to start the campaign and you have not yet proven the campaign will be successful, don't make the decision to start the campaign. Keep working until you are certain that the campaign will be successful based upon the interest from people. Are things happening on social media? Do you have a real good possibility that you're going to be successful if you open day 1?
When Yola was doing the tablet in the Yola campaign, did you use also paid promotion, or was it just organic, like media attention, like media connections?
I don't recall.
All right.
I would guess that there was probably, yes, some paid promotion there somewhere. But I don't know.
Last question? No? All right, then let's give Marc another huge applause for being our first speaker. Thank you.